Hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Medlock, psychologist and ICF certified professional coach. Welcome to Transformation Toolbox, a podcast focusing on practical, research-based strategies to reimagine, revitalize, redesign, and reinvent your life and career. Look, navigating obstacles and changes and transitions can be overwhelming and challenging, but there are always multiple solutions and paths open to us. So let's talk about ways to get unstuck, move forward, and live your best life. Hi, everyone. Welcome, or hopefully, welcome back to Transformation Toolbox. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Medlock. I have a guest with me today that we'll be getting to in a little bit after the first break. But as I started last week, let's get into a space where we're kind of ready to jump in and hear about today's topic, which is engagement and the concept of flow. So, to be engaged and to be in flow, one thing that you have to do is you have to really be present and focused and in your body. So, we've all had hectic days in this chaotic world that we're in up to this point at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I want everyone to do part of what is called a grounding technique. So, right now, wherever you're at, you can do this. So, I want you to look around and think about 5 things that you can see in your environment. Take a minute to do that. You can probably do it quickly. Now think about 4 things that you can touch. You don't have to touch them, but if you can, go ahead. And then 3 things that you can hear. Okay. So this is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. After that, you would do the 2 things that you could smell and the 1 thing you could taste. You can use it anytime to really bring yourself back into the present moment and ground yourself in your body. So now that you're there in your body and present, let's jump into the topic today. Last week, we started with the concept of PERMA, PERMA, which is Dr. Martin Seligman's 5 pillars of positive psychology and the 5 pillars of well-being. So last week we covered positive emotion. Today we're covering the E in the PERMA model, which is engagement. So we have a guest. We're going to be talking about engagement and the idea of flow. Bill Grant, I'll bring him later. He is the creative director of As Told by Video Marketing, and he also hosts his own podcast, As Told by You. So he's a very creative, multifaceted person that can speak on the subject of engagement and flow. So what is it? So engagement, I think we hear a lot about engagement now because we hear about customer engagement and social media engagement, but how we use engagement in positive psychology is really showing up in your life. That's the best way to put it. That you're focused, present in the moment, in your body, that you're involved, that you're participating, that your energy is focused on the tasks and the activities that you're doing moment to moment every day, that you're there. So I know that you probably have been in conversations with people and you think to yourself, are you listening? Where did you go? Are you here? Come back to me. Because you can tell that they're not actually there. They're not fully engaged. So engagement is something that can we do all the time. We can be engaged when we're in conversations. We can be engaged when doing work tasks, when we're doing cooking, when we're doing cleaning, when we're gardening in the yard, when we're listening to music. No matter what it is throughout your day, you can show up in a way that's being engaged. Now, what flow is, the concept of flow, is a more intense, kind of episodic version of engagement. So a flow state, which was, I think the well-researched, the father of flow is Csikszentmihalyi. which don't ask me to spell it. It has like 20 letters in the name. He's the researcher really since the 1970s that's been talking about a flow state. And in Seligman's model of engagement, I really think the way he describes it is more like this flow that he finds that is important to well-being. And Csikszentmihalyi himself in his research and his writing has said that flow is one of the keys to happiness. So the flow state is an episodic state. People have actually described it as an altered state of consciousness in which you are so deeply immersed and engaged and focused with your full attention, your full concentration, that time actually stops. It's those times that we start doing something and we look up and it's 2 hours later and we've lost all that time. That's the one of the reasons why it's called flow is because time flows, but really your sense of time, you're not thinking about it because you're so fully immersed. In performance and peak performance literature, sometimes it's called being in the zone or being dialed in. And it's the state in which you're so into what you're doing and you're so enjoying it, because enjoyment is a key piece of it, that everything else just falls away. Um, Csikszentmihalyi says the ego falls away because when you're in that state of flow, the main thing that's happening is that your brain is not up in itself. You're not all up in your head. You're not being self-conscious. You're usually not engaging in self-talk. You don't have all these interruptive thoughts that flood in. That's kind of dialed down or turned off completely. The other thing when you're in flow is that you're not paying attention to anything in your external environment. All of that has kind of fallen away. The only thing in front of you is the task or the activity at hand that you're focused on. So, what happens when you're in flow? There has to be three conditions that have to be met to be in flow. And the key to flow, if you look up, I'm not going to put a graphic up, but if you look up flow and you look at the diagrams of flow, it's skill on one side and challenge on the other. So flow is activated when we have a task or an activity that aligns with our skills and our abilities in a way in which we're challenged, but a good amount of challenge where it motivates us and we feel like we can do this, we can accomplish this, but it's not too hard where it's overwhelming. So if the challenge is too much, too hard, if the task or the activity just outpaces your skill set, you tend to feel anxious and overwhelmed. And if the task or activity that you're doing is not challenging enough, it leads to boredom. So, in the middle of boredom and anxiety and being overwhelmed is the state of flow, where it's the alignment of the challenge with your skills and abilities. The second important thing in flow is that you have to be enjoying it. So you could have an activity or a task in front of you that takes hours and hours and you don't like it. You're not enjoying it. There's no way to achieve that altered state of consciousness flow state when you're doing something you don't enjoy. So enjoyment is a big part of flow. The other big part of flow is that it tends to be goal directed. So when you're engaging in flow and flow activities, you're typically working on something. You're what I call in process. You're in the process of creating something typically, or working on something that you're trying to complete. So we call that goal directed and purposeful. So that's the other thing about flow, the three criteria that kind of have to be in place to be in flow. So that when you're in flow and all these things come together, it kind of feels effortless. So not only does time flow, but you tend to be flowing in the moment from thought to creation really easily. It's not a struggle for you. It just everything kind of clicks. I want to distinguish though a couple things that are not flow. So people always say to me, I just lost about 3 hours doom scrolling or watching TikTok videos of dogs changing outfits, which is undeniably funny, I will say. But you can lose time doing things that are really distraction. And I think because we have so many things in our environment now, information just coming at us all the time, we have so many ways that we can be distracted that diving into those things, and a lot of that is going to be on your phone, by the way, um, is a form of actually turning yourself off completely. It's distraction. You're not being creative. You're not typically doing something you enjoy. It might be funny, but you're not really enjoying it a lot. It's not goal directed. You're not trying to accomplish something in that moment besides just distracting yourself. So it doesn't really, and also you're not typically using your skills and abilities in that moment. You're not challenging yourself in any way. It's just a time suck is what I call, like a time waster in which you're distracting yourself. So when you lose time in that way, it's not the flow state. It's just you distracting yourself. That could be shutting down your emotions, escaping something that's happened in your day that you don't like, that you don't want to think about. Um, but that's not flow. And that also doesn't lead to these outcomes that flow leads to, that we'll talk about in a minute. The other thing that Csikszentmihalyi talks about is that flow is enjoyable, but it's different from being pleasurable. So even though we could spend, a lot of time and good time doing things like, having sex or eating or sleeping, which is fabulous when you have a good sleep, or binge watching an excellent TV show. Right now, I'm deep diving back into rewatching Northern Exposure and what with my 19-year-old, and it's fabulous. And I'm also just crazy into Bad Company right now. But yeah, I'm immersing myself in that, but I'm not in a flow state. I'm just really enjoying it. So those things are pleasurable to us, but they don't constitute flow. Again, because we're typically not using our skills or abilities. We're just kind of doing things that feel good to us, which are all important, but not really part of what we call flow. So, real quickly before we go to the break, flow is really important because it links to other things in the PERMA model, and it links to other things that bring us kind of joy, happiness, fulfillment, and well being. Because when you're in a flow state, one of the things that's really important is that we're completely in control in that moment, in that process. There's so many times in our lives where we don't feel in control, and there is so many things that we're not in control of, that when we get into a flow state, it feels like I'm dialed in, I'm zoned in, I'm on fire, and I'm in control of what I'm doing right now. That self-control is important. It bolsters our self-confidence, our self-competence, and those feelings of self-control really do lead to kind of a feeling of meaning and purpose and fulfillment. The other thing, because we tend to be very productive. So when you're in flow, you're usually in process, getting stuff done. So we accomplish many things during our periods of flow. And that accomplishment, which is part of the PERMA model, the A is accomplishment, helps us to feel again that we are contributing, that we are doing things that are purposeful, that we are doing things that have meaning in our lives. And all of those things lead to that bigger state of well being. Being in flow because of the level of concentration and also self control, it leads to stress reduction, so we feel less stressed and just happier in general in those moments. And it also just leads to better long-term mental health. So there's lots of studies on flow state. There's lots of things that you can watch and listen to about flow state. You'll see a lot of it in peak performance because athletes and people that are trying to get better at a specific skill use a lot of the flow state. Again, another real benefit of flow is that you typically tend to sharpen your skills and get better at what you're doing while you're in flow. So the more you're in flow, the more you're also growing in your skill set and you're also growing as a person. So those are all the important things that flow give us. So um, we're going to be talking to Bill after the break. And then toward the end of our podcast today, I'll talk to you about ways that you can bring more flow into your life. So let's get into the break. And on the other side of it, we'll be talking to Bill Grant. I'll see you back here in a sec.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So we're going to be bringing in my guest now, and my guest is Bill Grant. He is a Creative Times, 5 person? I'll let you tell him about it. Hi, Bill.
Hey, what's up? Welcome.
Hey, so Bill, you can talk about yourself, but I want to talk about you too. You own a video marketing company, and we were just talking about in 2009 that Bill did my marketing video for my company 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And you also have your own podcast, As Told by
Yep.
You, and your company
Yep.
is As Told By. And guys, you can find all the links for you to link to Bill. He does wonderful work. You can actually see his video that he did 16 years ago on my website. It's still up
And all
there.
by myself. I was the only employee that 16 years
You were
ago.
like, yeah, it was you and your stuff
Yeah,
set
that's
up in
right.
my office. Yeah, it was cool.
The good old days.
Yes, the good old days. And you're also a musician.
Yes. Yep.
So
I try to be.
how many instruments do you play? I've never asked you that.
Well, I play one other than sing. So singing is my primary instrument, and I also play piano, keyboards. So a lot of what I do is play keyboards in several
Yeah.
bands and sing as well.
Yeah. Did you know I sing? I just don't sing in public.
I don't think we've ever talked about it.
I sing. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I do. So
I gave
what
it
I
up for
want
a
to
long
know,
time. So.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what I want to know is because you're so creative in so many different ways, and you've also been a photographer,
Mhm.
a videographer, a filmmaker, a musician. What was the first time that you ever experienced kind of a state of flow where you lost time and you were dialed in? I want you to think way, way back.
Yeah.
What were you doing? What
It's
was it?
100%. It's singing. Um, it's the first time I ever really felt like I was good at something without having to, work at it super hard. And so, I guess that's what whatever talent is, that's what it is. So like you go, "Oh, I'm good at this. I didn't know." And I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, like singing for the church. And, I recognized at that point that it wasn't hard for me and it was astonishing for everybody to hear me sing the way I could at 7 or 8 years old. And so it's always been that. And I went into college to be a vocalist. So I went into college in order to get a degree in music and become a professional singer. And kind of stopped that about halfway through, and switched over to a practical major that made a little bit more sense in the long run. But yeah, that's always been sort of my uh, biggest lose track of time thing, has always been singing. And my best kind of moments, I guess, that
Mhm.
has always been that.
So tell me, like 6, 7-year-old Bill figuring out
Yeah.
he could sing, which was actually also mine
Yeah. Okay.
also, and I
Nice.
carried around a cassette player and sang into it just so
Mhm.
we had it. So, how did that make you feel as a child? So, do you remember how you felt? What did it bring into your life when you realized, "I have this thing I can do?"
Well, this was the '80s, right? So there's a lot of this is sort of my one way that I can stand out. Because if I make the Johnny Lawrence reference, right? I'm not Johnny Lawrence in Karate Kid, right? I don't have that Johnny Lawrence thing going on. I'm not cool. I don't have cool clothes, whatever it is. But when I start to sing, everybody goes, "Whoa, what's going on there?" And I recognize that pretty early. Now, of course, I was also in a small town, so the the pool was very small. So small fish in a small pond, and so all that stuff. But that was my sort of one exterior thing. Like you have friends and you have these connections and you have family connections and all that stuff. But the one thing I always knew that I could be sort of universally cool is when I sing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not
that's
as much
cool.
anymore, but like, when I was a kid, certainly it was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So later on, because you have
Yeah.
other creative endeavors that you
Yeah.
pursued,
Yeah.
what was the next thing that you felt like, "I'm losing myself in this, I'm dialed
Yeah.
in, I'm in this flow state," and then what was the aha moment there, and what was it for
Well,
you
when you
next?
talk about skills,
Yeah,
I think it's important, right? That there's a I don't remember who said it. I think it's Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours,
Malcolm
and
Gladwell, yeah.
yeah, you have to be really bad at something for a long time before you get good at it, right? So when I met you in 2009, I had already been doing videography for 5 years at that point, right? Uh what helps me to kind of find that stuff is to say, uh, okay, I learned this thing, and then I learned this thing, and I go, oh, now I learned this thing. Oh, that's cool. And so by the time I met you, I was still learning things. I was still trying to pick up new things and still try to put things into place. And I think one of the things that hits flow, especially for me for video, is when I can pick up a new skill and I've got it, like lighting for interviews or whatever it is that I wanted to develop more kind of proficiency at. Um, Once I get it, then I try to just do it as much as I can so that I can get through that stage of not being so good at it. And I found that in almost every case, nobody can really tell whether you're good at it or not. Like if I started to play the piano in front of you, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're good," and I go, "Yeah, yeah, but I'm okay." But like, but you look at it and you go, "Yeah, you're good." and I can't, the distance between those things is pretty high. I have never had a flow state playing piano. So I played piano since I was about 6, just the same
Mhm.
way. But I've never had a flow state playing piano. Piano has always been very difficult for me, coordination wise, and it really kind of understanding. I do it professionally in a lot of scenarios, but so don't tell any of the bands I'm in that I'm not very good.
Mhm.
But like
Oh,
I
you're
don't feel like I have a flow state when it comes to piano the way that I do with singing. Um, I can lock into a song vocally and just black out for the 4 minutes that it takes to sing it, you know? But piano is always a, uh, kind of labor. It's always
yeah.
work, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and that makes
but
sense because the whole theory of flow is if the challenge is too much, it's you
mhm,
got it's that balancing, like, once it
yeah,
becomes too hard, then
yeah.
it's impossible to have flow. It's
So
impossible because it's just
so that
too
you ask
challenging.
about the other things. So,
Yeah.
there's writing. So I write,
Yeah.
a lot of the content that we make. So I'll write scripts and I'll write concepts and I'll write up, synopses and different things, and I definitely get into flow state with that stuff, because, it's another thing that I guess I kind of feel pretty good at, right? That I feel like I at least write things that I like, and most of the time the clients like it too. And so when I can craft a narrative out of an interview, or if I can write it, write a script, those things definitely feel like flow as well. Just similar to music.
Mhm. So, what's your process like when you're writing? Are you editing? Are you like when you're in that flow state, is it just
Yeah,
all coming out?
yeah.
Because
So
I'm a one-time writer also. Like I just write it. So
so
I'm wondering what it's
here are
like
my
for you.
notebooks. Here are my notebooks.
Okay. Oh, you have notebooks.
I have 4 sitting on my desk.
Okay, cool.
And what'll happen is, I have to be by myself. I need to be away from this environment, and I need a pen and a notebook. Um, and I write whatever comes into my head, I write it down. And I write it down if it's wrong, because I know I know I'm gonna refine it, and I know I'm going to have somebody else look at it. Somebody else is gonna take out the wrong thing and put the right thing in. Um, but yeah, my process is a pen and a notebook, and I'll just write until I feel like I've got it. And That definitely is flow. I mean, that's one of those things where I would almost rather do that than just about anything I do on a daily basis. And I'll do it a lot. There's a cigar shop like 4 doors down from our office, and I'll go sit down there and have a cigar and write, maybe once a week, because it's important. But that's something that definitely feels like flow as well. But the process is I have to isolate, because when I'm around other people, I get I they feel obligated or interested in making sure that they ask me questions and do whatever, and I have to get away from that and have some, you know, ability to focus.
Yeah. So are your notebooks with you most of the time? Are they by your bed? I'm just curious. Like, are they always with
Uh,
you?
I have made a point now not to take them home.
Okay.
So I don't take them home, so that the work stays here. But whatever my current notebook is a talisman. It's like I have to have it, or else I don't feel empowered. I'm like Thor with the hammer. If I don't have my notebook, I don't
Yeah.
feel empowered. And so yeah, it's not for tasks as much. It's a little bit for tasks, but like, uh, uh, you know, I can go through these notebooks and track my last 3 or 4 years. Just because of what I've been writing, of what I've been writing about, and all of that kind of stuff. The other thing I do that is kind of flow state a little bit is business planning. So like as I'm thinking about moves for the business for the next, where are we headed? What are we going to be doing? Researching trends and things that are happening. That stuff is it also kind of counts, I think, in taking me out of it.
Yeah. And you're doing something, we're gonna go to another break in a minute. You're doing something that when I work with my clients all the time, especially because I work with a lot of neurodiverse clients, I say like, it is so different. The pen and the paper is so different than typing it into your brain and to what it triggers, that I'm so glad you're talking about writing by hand,
Yeah.
because I think not only for all different sorts of people, not only creatives, but neurodiverse folks out there, it's so much more powerful to do that kind of just writing with pen and paper. And also, I think you referenced just the idea that then you have this beautiful living record of
Yeah.
all these things that you've had that I think you don't get in any other way, in a sense.
Nope. And,
Yeah,
certainly ChatGPT or any of the other ways that people do it now,
yeah. So we're going to go to a break now. And when we come back, I want to talk more about kind of how you get yourself into flow state when you're not really ready for it, and how you minimize distractions around you. So we'll
Okay.
cut to the break and we'll see you on the other side.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth, and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. We're talking to Bill Grant, and we are talking about different states of flow. Uh, And I wanted to ask you, because you talked about the different times and the different activities you're doing when you get into flow. So when you're like making videos and doing other things, when you're producing, directing, you have people in the room, and let's say there's just some days you're not feeling it. Um, or sometimes, like, I know you're not feeling like writing sometimes, like, it's not coming to me. What do you do to kind of push yourself into a state of flow? Do you have any tools, tips, techniques to use to kind of get yourself dialed in, or even in the moment?
I think it's a lot about fundamentals. It's a lot about, like, when I have a interview subject in front of me, I'm trying to get the lighting right. And the lighting just isn't working. Sometimes that happens, where you're in a place where you've got a lot of mixed lighting or there's some other problem. Uh, Going back to fundamentals is such an important thing. Just get all the get all of the fantasy of what you wanted out of your head and just work on, like, okay, fundamentally, this is what I've got to do, right? I got to create a shadow under the chin. I got to make sure I've got a rectangle under the eye. Let's just work on those fundamental things, and that helps a lot. I think, like with singing, I'm working on a show for next Sunday, where I've got to sing a song I've never heard before. So I got to listen to it 100,000 times, to the office and back. I've got to download the lyrics and study the lyrics. I've got to do those things, but all of that is fundamentals. It's just like, I'm not worried about the fact that I've never heard this song before. I'm just like learning a song like I've done 100 times, right? So just, kind of get that repetition in there. And I find that most most practice is really just repetition. It's really just doing that thing again, right? For things like exercise, like I'm also a mountain biker. That's another place where I get into flow. And so like
Mhm.
I can clear my head by going for a bike ride, because what happens is my thoughts spin, but they can't go anywhere. So I'm just riding the bike, and
Right.
my thoughts can't go anywhere. But like one of the things my wife always says, if you put your shoes on, you're going to go, right? And so it's like you can't necessarily control the way you feel, or how you think about it, but if you take the action, the simple action, the step by step, going to fundamental things like, if I put bike shorts on, there's nothing else I'm going to do but go ride the bike, right? And so that's kind of the way I try to look at it. It's so much of what I do business wise is obligatory. In other words, I've got to shoot tomorrow. It's scheduled. 10:30. I've got to be ready to go. They don't care whether I'm feeling it or not. So I just got to do it. And the obligation is enough to just get me into that moment. And sometimes it's harder than others, but I think the sort of making those times where you're committed to it, like this show next Sunday, it's scheduled. There's a poster. People are coming. What am I going to not learn the song?
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I got to learn the song. Doesn't matter whether I feel like it or not, right? I've got to learn
Yeah.
the song. Um, and I was assigned the song by the guy that put the show together, but like, if I didn't like it, I had it. I had a whole 2 weeks to tell him I didn't like it, so I didn't do that. So now it's next Sunday, so I got to learn it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of that stuff, if you give yourself too many opt outs, burn the ships, as it were. It's definitely a way to kind of lock yourself into doing it. I hope that's a
Yeah.
good answer. I don't know,
No,
but
no, yeah, because and the goal's there. So, like,
yeah,
that is going to happen. So
yeah,
you have
that's
to
right.
incrementally chunk it out,
Yeah,
practice a certain amount every day to get to the goal.
and
I'm
look,
wondering. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
I was gonna say we're about to start on a video 2 weeks, first week of June. That we did a video for this client 2 years ago. Nope, 3 years ago, 2022, and they loved it. We have talked to them 8 times in that 3 years about how incredible this has been for them, and how they've raised so much money using this video and all this stuff. And now we've got to do it again. So now how do I do it again? How do I make it happen the way it happened 3 years ago again, right? And I put myself in the right situation. I put myself in like I give myself the opportunities that it's going to be okay, right?
Right.
I don't have to make it up out of scratch again. I know kind of how it goes, but I have to put myself in a good position so that so that it accidentally ends up great again, right? And
Yeah.
so that's because there's no room for it not being great. We just
Right.
have to make it great, so
But you have the confidence, I think. Like you said, you go back to fundamentals, to your skill set, to what you know
yeah.
you can do, and you just trust it. You just
Yeah,
trust it.
and don't get too fancy with it. It's like
Yeah.
we overcomplicate things way too much. So,
So I'm wondering, there's the obligatory and there's the things that kind of you enjoy, right? And where
mhm.
like when you get on that mountain bike, like like for me it used to be like running and other stuff
Yeah.
like that. I would do the same thing. So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you're holding the time and space to do all the things that bring you that kind of enjoyment and flow state that are not obligatory?
Boy, that's tough, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
tough. I think it's important that my wife, my partner, knows how important that is to me. So I have band practice tonight. I have band practice tomorrow night. I have band practice next Tuesday. Uh, she knows how important it is to me. So that's part of it, right? Is putting myself in a good environment where it's encouraging that I do these things outside of the obligatory, right? Now, keep in mind, all of this music stuff at almost 52 years old is super like hobby. It's just me having a hobby, right? I'm not I'm not letting down thousands of people, right? It's just that, I have a band. My band and I have taken this job and we're going to go do it. It's not obligatory in that way, other than just to say we just want to do things that we enjoy doing. And so, but anyway, my partner is a partner. She wants me to be express myself in whatever way I need to. I want the same thing for her. So that certainly helps. I think also getting away from people that need things from you is important, right? Children, God bless children. I have two children and I love my two children. But when I'm around my children, they need things from me. And so if I need to get in that state or if I need to do things something like that, it's mostly going to be without my children. Both of my children are a little older. So it's easier to if
Yeah.
they're 3 and 5 or whatever, it's very hard to get away from them. I understand that. But like, older kids, we're able to just sort of have hobbies and do those things that bring us joy and that we can get into flow state. So I mean that helps. I think with business, the other thing that I have to do is I have to say, I'm going to experiment with things. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try something that I've seen somebody else do and see if I can do it. I'm going to replicate things. We've had interns for the past 3 or 4 years from the university, and the final project for the interns has always been we're going to have them make a TV sitcom opening sequence featuring our office. So they have to pick the sitcom. They have to pick who's going to play what character. They have to understand how to shoot it. And so, that gives us all a little bit of time to just to have fun with the interns and let the interns shoot something and, do that kind of stuff. And so we have to take those times out from the obligatory stuff, from the difficult stuff. I'm starting a new project tomorrow. I have planned as much as I can plan with them. I know who we're interviewing. I know what we're talking about. But what's going to happen when we get in there is I'm going to ask them questions that are going to take them off of their mission statement answers and get them to give me personal answers. And that allows me to get into a business flow state when I can say, why does this mean something to you? What do people get out of this work that you're doing? What do you want the future to be for your clients now that you've worked with them? And all of that stuff helps me to kind of enjoy getting those answers out of people who tell me that they can't give me those answers, you know? So they'll tell you ahead of
Yeah.
time, I'm no good at this. I'm not going to be able to give you a good interview. I was like, no, just wait. And I'll ask you the right questions and that'll pull the right answers out of you.
Yeah. I've watched your podcast and you're a really good interviewer.
Oh,
Because
thanks.
I think again, I think you trust your skill set. And I think it also because you're focused, you're creative, you're curious, and I think you're also focused on like meaning and purpose and what the hell is this all about? What does this all
Yep.
mean? Why are we all here?
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think when you right? So I think that when you work from that place, it brings it out of other people. So let's have that conversation
Well, and
about
and
why
and
all this matters.
yes, exactly. And what's the effect, right? But this
Yeah.
season on our podcast, we've done 25 guests since January, and our this season we have had people on that I don't know very well,
Mm,
right? And so me and you, we've known each other forever, right? We can banter like nobody's business because we've known each other for a long time. But if I don't know you very well, I have to go, I'm not really sure what your personality is or what your sense of humor is or how you're going to react to this stuff. But I know that if I ask you what brought you to doing the thing that you're doing, and
mm.
what do you think it means? What do you think people get out of it? You're going to give me what you really think about that. And I don't have to, and I can sense your personality as we go through it. And I can feel out those ideas, and I think um, it comes from the curiosity. Absolutely. Just
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Ted Lasso,
Yes.
curiosity is important, and I think it's so important that a lot of people, as they get to the point that I'm at in my career, where I've been doing it for 20 years, they're like, "No, I got it figured out." You want to know how to do it? Come ask me because I know how to do it. And I'm like, "No, I don't have it figured out. It's constantly changing, so I'm constantly having to change to keep up with it." You know.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, as the last questions before we go to the next
Yeah.
break and I let you go, what's your next thing? You're constantly evolving. I think I am
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, what's your next thing that you're gonna try to get a flow state in? Like, what do you see in the horizon, or 5 years,
Well,
10 years?
I
You
wanna
can
get good I wanna get good at playing piano at some point, you know? I mean, I've been doing it for almost 50 years. I need to be able to play well. But also I think business-wise, I would love for us to move into doing longer form, like, documentary stuff, like, really taking a subject and pulling it apart and focusing on one thing for 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months. You know, I think that would be very cool, to do. You know, as our business changes, as I do things like I have these mics everywhere, you know, and it's like this never happened before 2, 3 years ago. You know, who knows where it's gonna go? Who knows whether it's gonna be VR or it's gonna be, you know, whatever. We'll just follow it where it leads.
yeah, right.
Um,
Well, thank you so much for spending
yeah, of
time
course.
with me. After the break, when we come back, I'm gonna talk to folks about ways they can invite flow in their life. But again, everybody, you can check out all Bill's links on the show notes, all the ways you can reach him as told by. Um, Thank you, Bill. It's
Yeah,
been
of course.
great talking to you.
Yeah, it's good to come on.
Thank you. Great. And we'll go to break and I'll see you guys on the other side.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zoric, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zoric, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zoric has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Welcome back, and I want to thank Bill Grant again for spending that time with me. I'll be on his podcast actually on June 6th. So I want to wrap up today and in this last segment by talking about 6 ways that you could bring more flow into your life. And some of these we talked about in our conversation that we just had. The first one was actually one of the last things Bill and I talked about. Number one is to make space in your calendar and block time so that you can have these periods of deep concentration, intense focus. I call them deep dive times, and you can place them on your calendar. And I really mean it. Place it on your calendar because they tend to get shoved to the side. So I want you to block time in your calendar every week. Some people have it on their calendar every day, usually at least an hour. It's hard to do flow state in less than an hour. Even my neurodiverse folks, if it's half an hour, that's fine. 1 to 2 hours, block it on your calendar, commit to it, and say, okay, I'm going to hold this time to get into the flow state, to deeply dive, to intensely focus, to use my skills and meet these challenges, to kind of take advantage of these flow states where I'm going to be the most productive. I think it's complete hogwash, by the way. I just heard a commercial this morning that's like, oh, if you have this tool and this multitasker and this thing on your desktop and this thing, it makes you more productive. None of that makes you more productive, folks. It's just more multitasking, which is really not making us more productive. But having these states where we can get into the flow of things, where we can dial ourselves in, is a way to be more productive. So hold that time and space in your calendar. You have to kind of make the time for it. Second, I think Bill and I talked about this a little bit too, is you have to minimize distractions and interruptions. Now, in 4 weeks from today, I'm going to do a whole show on minimizing distractions because I think we live all the time distracted because so much information is coming at us all the time. There's so many things that we can pay attention to that flood our world in this fast-paced, information-based world. So one of the things we have to do is really minimize not only distractions but interruptions. So distractions, what I mean is turn off the phone. Please turn off the phone. Um, Turn off all your notifications that are coming through Slack on your computer or anywhere else, or people that are pinging you, whatever it might be. Turn that all off. Ask people not to interrupt you. Bill was talking about having kids. As we have kids that are older, my daughter's 19, you can say, hey, I'm not to be interrupted. But minimize those interruptions, minimize those distractions so that you can have a quiet, organized place where you can be in a flow state. And that does mean organizing your space. It might mean that you're doing it outside. You have to pick a place where you feel comfortable, where you feel peaceful, and some place where you feel kind of happy, enjoyed, and safe so that you can get into that flow state. So that's another part. The third thing you want to do, because remember, flow is about the skills meeting the challenge in the right way. They come together in a way where it's challenging but engaging so that you can move through it without feeling anxious or bored. It's that great middle state where it's clicking, but you're still being challenged enough to keep you interested. So you have to know where your skills are, where your skills, abilities, and strengths lie. One way to do that is to think about where you've been successful before. I asked Bill a question about what's the first time you really felt like, wow, I'm good at this. I'm in a flow state. And for him, it was singing. I can really do this, something that just comes naturally to you. Think about the times you've been successful in work, successful in life. There's a great exercise in the book, What Color is Your Parachute, where you think about 7 success stories. And then you kind of look at the strengths and the skills you used in that success. You can also use these wonderful tools that you can find online. I have an article again that'll be linked to this podcast where I'll have the links to all these. But there's the Clifton Strengths. It used to be called Strengths Finder by Gallup. You can go online. It'll assess all your strengths. It's a great tool. You can go on the Career One Stop site. These are great for career changers. And there is a skills assessment there, or you can go on ONET, and ONET has a little star in it. But again, I'll have the links to it. But the ONET site, which is also great, has an interest profiler. So there's all these beautiful online tools now where you can really get a good sense of where your strengths and your skills lie. So then the fourth thing is, after you know your strengths and your skills, is to choose the right activity. And look, a lot of this is just exploration and testing things out to get that type of activity that is the right amount of challenge. Bill talked about like piano doesn't work for him, but he wants to get better at it. So it fits in that flow state. So try a lot of different things, a lot of different activities to see what feels right in terms of the alignment. And along with that, then the fifth thing is to pay attention to what's happening with your feelings, with your body in those moment to moment things when you're doing any task or any activity, anything it might be, in your day from start to finish. When are you bored? That means you're not challenged enough. So when are you feeling bored? When are you feeling overwhelmed? When are you feeling anxious? And then when are you not? When are you losing time? When are you dialed in? When do you have that feeling like, I didn't want to stop doing this? I was so into it, I didn't want to stop. And not only that, it met the criteria of like, I enjoyed the heck out of it, I wasn't thinking out, I wasn't up in my head having weird self-talk or thinking about what I needed to buy at the grocery store. I was dialed in. But that means I want you to focus and pay attention. I think we move from thing to thing, from task to task, and we don't reflect on, wait a minute, how was that for me? How was that for how I felt about me? How did that feel to my body? So pay attention to those places where you feel those different things, and you'll start to discover um, as you're experimenting with different tasks, different activities, the things that create more flow for you. And then the last thing is have some goals. So it's process that's leading towards an outcome. Bill talked about he has a performance that he has to do. So that's a goal. It's happening. It's already set, and he's working towards learning a song for that. So when you have a goal and you're being goal oriented and you're working towards something, whether it's a piece of art that you're working on or whether it's a report that you have to do, there's something that you're producing and you're in the process of producing it. So set goals in that moment so that you have something that you're striving towards and striving for. And you can break those goals down into smaller pieces or chunks so that in that hour that you're spending, in that 2 hours you're spending, you can get that sense of, I made some accomplishment, I made some progress, I moved towards this thing that I'm creating, that I'm working on. So those are the 6 tools you can use to bring more flow into your life. Again, they'll be linked. I have an article, lifebydesigncoaching.org is my website. It'll be on the front page. It'll say episode 2. All the tools will be there, plus the links I mentioned. Look in the show notes for Bill's information. I'll be on his podcast on June 6th, as told by you. Um, Next week, we're going to be continuing with the PERMA model, where we'll be doing relationships. That's the R, positive relationships, social connection. So important for all of us. I really think it's probably the number one thing that in the end, it's about who loved you and who you loved and who's around you. And the person that I have my most important relationship with, my daughter, will be my guest on my show because we're going to explore how relationship formation is different for Gen Zs. I may have an ongoing thing that's called Ask a Teenager. But she'll only be a teenager for 6 more months, so we got to get her in here. Because I think there's such interesting generational differences in how we form social support and we form relationships. So that'll be coming up next week, same time, 1 o'clock on Wednesdays on Transformation Toolbox. So I hope that you will join me then. And in the interim, in the next week, I want you to be good to yourself, be in service to others, and fight for the things that you care about. So I will see you next week on Transformation Toolbox. I hope you'll join me. Have a great week. Thank you for spending this hour with me, Dr. Elizabeth Medlock, on Transformation Toolbox, where we explore ways to reimagine, revitalize, redesign, and reinvent your life and career. Join me every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Bold Brave TV, powered by B2 Studios.